Hey guys, and welcome to the next video in the Chronicles of Ellyria tribe series. This episode we're going to be looking at the Terresk. And this ep, I am joined by not one guest, but two. So please say welcome to Duke Cov Generex. He is the Duke of Genera, which you'll find in Capricorn. And if you just look into Capricorn, he's currently the Count of Gartslope. Don't worry guys, name will change. Name will change. And he is the owner of the capital of Aurum. And we're also joined by Rice. She is the Countess of the currently named Longeagle Rest, the city of Solo Church, again, name to be changed, down in Lovascara. Welcome, guys!
Hey. Thanks, Misha. Thanks for having us.
Very welcome. And the good thing to note about these two guys, fair audience, is that they are from different biomes of the Terresk. So we should be getting two slightly different viewpoints of the Terresk based on their biomes and situation on the continent. Since we're speaking about biomes, let's just point out where they are on the Oceanus map. So the Terresk typically are found in the tropical wetlands. So the only place on our map you'll find them is in Capricorn, in Genera, which is Cov's duchy. Also in woodland savanna, which we don't actually have on the Oceanus map. And then you'll find them in the tidal marsh, which is down in Lovascara. You'll find them in Stormarsh, which is the duchy where Rice is located, and Abermist. Abermist? It's a temporary name, hopefully. Okay, guys, now we get to some good stuff where you get to pitch in with your knowledge. Biology. I hear / read that the Terresk are slightly shorter than your average humanoid.
Yeah, there's not a lot of tribes that are shorter than us. In fact, you have to go halfway across the world to the Kipik biome to find anyone who's on average shorter. Terresk, so.
That's actually a good point, because also the Hrothi are also far to the north. How's it feel being the shortest in your continent?
I think good things come in small packages. At least that's what my sister says all the time, so it must be
short. Is she shorter than you?
She is shorter than me.
Love it. Okay, so even though you guys are short, you know, at least you've got the stature to match it. You are average stature and quite light, 56 kilograms to 68 kilograms-ish. So it's not bad. You're not exactly built for, say, fighting.
Yeah, we're not warriors for sure, but I mean, 56 kilograms when you're only 5'2" is not too bad.
It's average, yeah.
Not willowy or anything like that.
Yeah, you're not like the dross. So yay for that. Now, it's on biology. Let's just get it out there. Let's get it out of the way. You have some serious chompers.
Personally, I prefer using the words that the Terresk have a sharp appearance. People do say that the Terresk have a harsh appearance, but I think that it's a nice. It's like it grows on you. And one thing that I really do love about the Terresk as well is their sharp, pointy ears, which I hope will also carry into the game character models as well. The teeth are fine as long as they keep the mouth shut.
A lot of people are like that.
Well, yes.
Yeah, the style of, not the style, but the look of the Terresk definitely put me off at the very start when I hadn't chosen a tribe yet. But Rice is right, you know, it does grow on you.
Yeah, I originally, that was the biggest reason why I, despite everything else that I read about the Terresk, I was hesitant to choose them because, yeah, of the appearance. But then I realized, wait, if they do keep those ears, they look so cute with those ears.
They do. Yes.
And I'm only going to be playing females because that would be the one that I would most. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, it feels more like me, so I'll play the female character.
Yes.
And I'm okay with how the female looks.
Oh, that's good to hear, because you'll be staring at her for a good year.
Yeah.
If not more. But yeah, so you are right in that the Terresk do have, as you said, sharp looks. So they have the strong brows, angular cheekbones, distinct noses. So they look quite attractive from a sharp point of view. But what about specifics with your colouring? How do you guys describe that?
Black hair?
Kind of average sort of.
Why was there a question mark there?
Question mark where?
You said black hair?
I'm looking at it and I'm like, it's dark. I don't know how else to describe it. The eyes are also mostly dark as well. Interestingly, looking at the eyes, it looks a little bit. The eyes are like really. I don't know how to explain. Just dark.
Black eyes.
Yeah.
Now, are we talking black as night or as black as my soul?
I don't really know you well enough to make that judgment.
Fair point. And you guys have medium skin tone to match, so apart from the teeth, you know, you are right. They're not bad lookers.
I view the skin tone and hair and everything like that as kind of like, I'm not sure whether it will be more like Southeast Asian or East Asian, but I view it around that sort of area.
That is a fair point you bring up, because later on I feel very East Asian about the Terresk, so yes, I hear you. Now, language. Do you actually know the 3 languages that the Terresk speak?
They can speak, I can do the first one,
Yeah.
one of them very easily, at least I can say it very easily. I can say they can speak Naren.
Hey, to pick the easy one.
Wait,
I love it.
Wait, is it
Everyone
called
talks
Naren?
It's Naren, yeah. Because you're good. Because of their trade. So yeah, by trade, most tribes will know Naren. Can you pick one, Cov?
Yeah, the crochet or the crochet. I'm not
I think no,
sure how
it's definitely a sir. So I think it's crochet. Yeah.
That weird little accent underneath it. So
Yeah, I associate it with facade, so crochet. Yeah, so the crochet language actually is kind of considered the Naren of the South because it is more widely spoken across several tribes along the South continents, or South kingdoms rather. And the final language is of course the Genu, because they have close ties with the Genoan for trade purposes as well. So yeah, those are the 3 languages that they do speak. But actually, let's go back to the crochet. Do you know which letters it includes and excludes?
the one that I do know, because one of my currently mares, but hoping to upgrade to count in the auction, one of my guys, Persanus, mentioned to me that the letter P is not included.
Correct.
It caused him some problems.
Yeah. I mean, at least you've only got 1 letter excluded. I think the Dras has 4 letters excluded, so you're not doing too poorly. But you also have that C with the accent beneath it, the S, and an I with like that triangle accent above it.
I wanted to include the I with a hat. I call it a hat.
Hat. Perfect.
It's it's also maybe called a carrot.
It's the one accent I don't remember the name of.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it's called either.
It's an eye with a triangle on it. We have to call it an eye angle. There's no
Love it. A+.
Eye angle.
Eye angle. Okay, so in terms of tribal traits, I feel like the Terresk actually aren't doing too bad comparatively because you have 3 bonuses and only 1 penalty.
Yeah, and our penalty's kind of, well, it's the wet lung, and so we can only, the only biome that's near to us where we're going to have problems is the semi-arid desert. And, you know, Terresk and Weird do have their issues, so we're not going to go there too much. I mean, even though as a Terresk, obviously, the Terresk in me makes me want to approach the Weird from a diplomatic angle, not just accept that the law says that we're not going to get along and go along with that. But yeah, I don't know any other biome that is going to give us issues
Per se.
It's pretty minor.
In regards to the talking and being diplomatic with the Weird, I do agree with that as well. Especially the law does point to the fact that the reason why the Terresk learned the Genoan language in the first place was because they believe in keeping minds close and the enemies even closer. So the fact that we have a law-wise speaking bad relationship with the Weird does not mean that we won't try to interact with them to try and be on friendly terms. But the Weird will be know that we stand for everything that they stand against. So
well, it's not so much. Yeah, you guys can be as friendly as you like to them. They're probably just not going to reciprocate.
That does only go as far as NPCs, though.
That's true. Yeah,
It's not
PCs can
control.
totally change the scene. something that I pointed out on the Weird video is the same thing I'll point out to you guys, is that especially in Genera, you've only got that one border between you guys and the Weird. Like in every other server, they've got biomes and duchies in between the Weird and like the semi-arid desert and then the wetlands, whereas you guys just share a border.
Yeah, it's a pretty harsh cutoff, as
Yeah.
I think was mentioned in the Weird video as well. But I think, in a way, that could be a positive, because there's not going to be the opportunity for too much intermingling there. You know, if the NPC Weird and the NPC Terresk are not going to get along well, great, they're going to stick to their own biomes. There's not some middle ground there where they're all going to get together and cause mischief. It's a nice cutoff.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like it. And there's no risk of you accidentally going into the semi-arid desert and dying. You have reason to be there. Okay, so yeah, wet lung is a penalty. I mean, it's not that bad a penalty because you probably aren't going to be going too far from home, but you've got some pretty alright bonuses.
I like our bonuses.
So you have water wellness, so you can remain in water longer than other tribes before suffering ill effects, which is great because you're like totally standing in water most of the time. You've got sun exposure. You can handle extended exposure to sunlight more than a lot of other tribes, but burn more slowly. So much better than Druss.
I think that's going to be quite useful, especially because the Terresk do have a we tend to be a seafaring people, so there's not a hell of a lot of shade. You can't just go and stand under a tree when you're out on a boat. So as opposed to, say, for example, the Dress, we are going to be able to undertake much longer sea voyages. So
maybe you'll find the Eroshe or the Madari.
I want to find the Madari first.
They're so pretty. Especially
Especially because of the cultural background and history between the Terresk, the Nerin, and what I'm assuming would also be the Madari. Because the story between Toran, Nerin, and Mida?
I don't know how to pronounce it.
That love story, tragic Romeo and Juliet style thing.
We'll touch on that one later because that's going to be quite important.
I love that one.
But yes, the sun exposure, definitely will lead itself towards longer ship journeys. And your final bonus is leather skin, of all things. You have resistance against infections. How lovely.
I think that may tie into just our biome.
Yeah, it does.
Both of them are quite hostile or quite dangerous for people to wade into if they don't have some sort of protection against it. So, good thing to have.
It just has me worried about what kind of infections you can get in game. Okay, so that's your bonuses and your penalties, which, I do think are pretty cool compared to some of the other tribes. Now, I just want to move on to nature a little bit. So as you were just saying earlier, Rice, about the inherent nature of the Terresk, so the personalities of, say, most of your NPCs.
Yeah, I love how the Terresk have generally strong communicators, and they're also like really good negotiators. And the amazing thing as well is they're virtually impossible to manipulate or fool as well. And this also probably ties into, I'm probably getting ahead of myself a little bit here, how much they love what they call the deception, I think, from memory, deception, which is the theater, because basically they try not to lie in normal interactions, and they take contracts and stuff very, very, very seriously. So having the theater where it's kind of more free to not really lie, but like I guess lie, is kind of cool for them. Yeah, it's called the Great Deception.
Liberating. Yeah, liberating because they don't normally do that. Hey, if you guys want to be Terresk and you want to perform, come on up to me in my Nerin city. I'm going to have an arena for performances, so come join me.
I actually am also having theatre performances as well.
There you go, if you want to be a Terresk performer.
And I will be encouraging them to do, like the people that I train in my city, I've actually called my city Aether Dream because of how I want to concentrate on stories and dreams and myths and stuff like that. And I want the people I'm training to do traveling and being traveling trips and everything.
Yeah, that sounds
So
beautiful.
definitely we'll be paying a visit. Hopefully people will pay a visit to your area, and I hope your people,
Set them down your way.
send them down my way as well, and we can share stories.
I love it. Plan already. Beautiful.
Side note,
Yes.
the Teresk love gold, and I personally love shiny things. So in game, I'm gonna be trying to do my best to make the gem of my city, the theater, to be gold somehow. Just at least somewhere gold. I want gold somewhere.
I like the ambition. I like the ambition. Definitely something to aim towards. Probably not, from the get-go, but...
No.
Well, I'll one-up you there, Rice,
Oh,
just
dear.
because that's what this is all about. The name of my city is Aurum, which is... It just means gold.
Gold. Yeah.
So you can have your
Whoa.
one golden building.
Well, the good thing is, at least we both agree that gold is, important.
Obsessive.
And very important for the Teresk. We also believe that we both share the same beliefs, even though we live in different kingdoms and everything. That the best biome is in fact the tidal marsh. So, sorry, I meant to.
We have agreed to disagree on that one point, Rice.
Sorry, that was a slip of the mouth. I was meant to say we both agree that the Teresk is the best tribe.
Yes.
Definitely meant to say that.
Small slip of the tongue. Oh, no rebuttal?
Look, all right, okay. So Rice and I have this agreement that the only truly valid way to compare our two biomes is by making an anagram out of the names of the biomes and then comparing those. And
I
so
have this
far,
website up.
no, just wait, just wait. Rice has not yet come back to me with a response to my anagram for the title of Tidal Marsh as a mild shart.
I'm getting there, okay?
Okay, I'm waiting. Whenever you're ready. Until then, the tropical wetlands reign supreme.
There you heard it, guys. That's the current state of things down in the southern continents on Oceanus. Just to explain something though, you guys, with your obsession of gold, I will explain it's not just because the Teresk are like materialistic. Well, I mean they are, but they're not.
We are, yeah.
It's more just the fact that it's one of the more flexible metals, so you can use it a lot easier, but also that it never rusts, which is kind of important when you're living in the very moist wetlands.
Absolutely.
So there is a reason why you guys like your gold.
Well, I also like it because it's shiny.
Well, yeah, shiny.
Yeah.
So just some more on the nature of the Teresk. Your really, really important mantra that you guys have is observe, understand, act. You guys are very patient and cautious, apparently. Do you feel patient and cautious?
No, yes, no? Is this a trick question?
No. Just Teresk are by nature. They think things through before they act.
Yeah, so I think that just speaks to the nature of the Teresk as traders and diplomats. You have to be patient to make good deals.
I think
That's
it's
just
also
the way we are.
Yeah, it's a reason why you're good at those jobs also, because of that nature. They sort of blend into each other, like which is a chicken and which is the egg. It's just Teresk.
Yeah, we'll sit back and we'll consider which one of those is a chicken and which one is an egg before putting our money on which one is which.
Exactly. Something I like about the Teresk, kind of speaks to me, is that you're extremely opportunistic by nature. So that everyone and everything is a tool to be used towards your own survival and prosperity. All your friendships are almost always made out of a personal benefit, but in a good way. In a good way.
Yeah, the Teresk have always sort of put me in mind of the Ferengi from Star Trek.
Okay.
They're always out to make a profit. Now that's tempered by their honourable nature, where they want to make a deal and they want to stick to their word, and they want to make sure that that they're maintaining the family honour, which puts me in mind of the Klingons from Star Trek. You may notice that I'm a little bit of a Trekkie there, but those two qualities have always sort of attracted me to the Turesk.
That's good. It's nice that you see something in them just beyond like the biome or their traits. You're seeing who they are as a people, and you're attracted to that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people look at them and just see
the teeth.
You know, there's a lot of them, and they grow rice. So they must be Japanese or Chinese, and that's really just the surface level. That's just their appearance. They've got so much more to them once you look beyond just that pointy gob.
Facade. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
I do also think that my favorite part, one of the favorite parts about the Turesk are their family, the importance they place in family. One of the things that I really like about games in general is the communities that you can build and the strength that you can put into these communities as well. So the fact that the Turesk have these really strong family bonds is something that really strongly appeals to me. Also, I guess the way that they form friendships, like they're not isolated, and they don't have an isolated nature such as Broodvere. So they are quite happy to go out and meet new people and then form bonds and relationships with these new people. Sure, they might be for their own gain, but they still do this, and I think there'd be a great opportunity for just to meet lots of people in any of the tribes anywhere in the world because of how much they want to make opportunities for themselves.
That's a good way of looking at it.
That's what drives us to be traders. No, that's traders with a D, not with a T.
It would drive me to be a trader if I were to. I'm not going to be a trader, but one of the things that I really wanted to do was be a traveling performer, and the biggest reason for that was to meet new people. And that's also one of the reasons why I wanted to be Turesk, because of how much they love their theatre and performance and everything like that.
Ties in quite nicely to
it all
everything
ties
you wanted.
in, yeah.
So moving on to environment. So we do know, yes, you're in the tropical wetlands as the usual home for the Turesk. I'm sorry, Rice. But in saying that even though that's your usual home, they're really hazardous, those wildlands, those wetlands.
Well, they are. We've adapted quite well to them. But one thing that you said there is not quite right. As much as it pains me to admit it, the ancestral home of the Turesk is the tidal marsh.
Wait, really? I mean, I knew that.
Yeah, the wiki is wrong, I'm told, by very, very reliable sources.
Interesting.
Yeah, the marsh was the original biome that was introduced along with the Turesk.
And they just haven't updated the law to reflect that.
Well, the wiki certainly hasn't been updated, but if you have a look at the
COA website.
No, you know the 4 PDFs that came out with the description of the biomes before DSS started?
Oh, no, I haven't read any of that.
It actually does say, and it says it elsewhere, I can't remember any of the other sources, but yeah, I was quite surprised to see that the tidal marsh is our ancestral homeland.
That actually makes a bit more sense. So basically, you know the story, the religion story, or whatever it's called, about Naren and
Mydra?
Yeah.
Let's just call her Mydra. That's
Mydra?
what it looks like.
Basically, Naren represents the grasslands because he was the kin or queen of the grasslands, and Mydra was the queen of the sea, yeah, and her father was the queen of the ocean. I don't know why there's a difference there, but yeah. And basically the Tauran became the queen of, they called it the wetlands, but the area that they describe in the story is one more like when the tide goes up and the wetlands become flooded. That's when Mydra coming onto land to try and find Naren. And then yeah, so that kind of like the tides going up and down is
probably more reminiscent of the tidal marsh,
yeah,
more so
and
than the
also,
wetlands.
yeah, more like because then they have like more likely to have more droughts because the tide's going down, and then the not like yeah, because that's why the droughts got kicked out, because the tide went down and it was like not much water.
Great drought.
Yeah, so then they had to say, sorry, Dress, but we can't look after you anymore. So that's why the Dress moved.
Okay, there we go,
I mean,
guys.
unless the wetlands can also have that drought flooding thing as much as the tidal marsh, but according to the name, I'm not sure.
I dare say it could, but probably not to the same extent.
I think it's been stated by Snipe Hunter that the tides will not be present, like there won't be a factor in the tropical wetlands.
Oh, in the tropical wetlands.
Yeah, you've got them in tidal marsh because it's like it's half your name.
It's part of my
But,
name.
yeah,
I'm really hoping my fingers are like crossed right now. I really want tides, at least even if they're like really fake. Like it's not proper tides, but I want some sort of flooding and drought mechanic, because I've watched these videos watching marshlands, just the water rising like peacefully and silently, and it's just so peaceful. That's how I imagine some parts of my tidal marsh, just peaceful, quiet, not many trees in sight, and the water is like knee-high, and you can see just underneath it, and possibly even have clear water, or maybe slightly murky. I don't know. I guess it can be murky water. Maybe.
Yeah, just depends on the area.
Yeah.
Sounds
So I just imagine it
beautiful.
peaceful.
Yeah, well, it would be picturesque. You're quite isolated, given the nature of your biomes.
Yeah.
So I guess this is still relating to the wetlands, but possibly also the tidal marshes. So you have sinkholes that are an environmental hazard. You've got your drought and your floods over in the tidal marshes. So your natural environments aren't really doing you any favours, but it does mean that your land is rich in cultivatable land for both wet and dry agriculture.
Yeah, it's definitely a pro, as it appears to me anyway. The Turesk have learned to live in this hazardous environment. Our enemies haven't. So if anyone tries to, march an army up to any of our cities, they've got to deal with these sinkholes and so forth. That we know how to deal with that. Any siege engines, unless you want to build them on the spot, once you get there,
With
they're
the
going to
lack
sink.
of trees.
Oh, well, that too.
Trees around as well, so
Yeah, absolutely. And then plus the obviously the shallows are a major component of the wetlands. So you can't even just roll your ship right up to the coast. That's not even the right way to describe it, because yeah, the coast is very poorly defined, I guess, within the wetlands, and that will keep our enemies away as well. So very, very defensible, but extremely rich, and that's why there's so bloody many of us.
so many.
But yeah, I think you guys have the most interesting agricultural system.
Well, yeah, we have the most varied one, certainly.
With different agriculture, you said?
Yes.
You mean like rice?
Yeah.
Like
your
agriculture.
agriculture.
Best agricultural system. Anything that involves rice is absolutely amazing.
A+. Yep.
No bias.
No bias at all.
Sorry, go.
No, I agree. The amount of food that we can produce, along with just the variety of food that we can produce, is a major bonus. There's no two ways about it, especially given we're so close to the semi-arid desert. They can't grow too many different types of food there because it's a desert. It's an opportunity for us to trade, even though, as mentioned, the Weird are not particularly keen on us, not the most friendly tribe towards the Turesk, but it's the most obvious trade relationship that I can see.
Because you're just gonna have so much food that they don't have access to that you could definitely trade for.
What I'm really hoping is that I can hopefully could make sushi. I don't know why, but I want sushi in game.
But there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, there's rice and fish,
Yeah.
And I mean, right next to the ocean, there should be seaweed, hopefully.
Yeah,
So,
in theory.
like, it's just algae. Algae is pretty close to
Yeah,
to
yeah, you
seaweed.
could totally DIY sushi.
Yeah, right.
I love it.
Yeah. What's also really cool is that we use rice not only just for food, but we use rice in so many different ways because rice is amazing, such as with rice armor and even rice paper walls. We use it for housing, for military purposes, and food. Like three essential things to the game, and it's part of everything. So it's really cool that way.
It's very self-sustainable.
Yes,
Your
rice is
entire
very
system.
yeah.
So you have your aquaculture and your aqua farming. So you've got your land farming, but kind of your water farming as well at the same time, which is cool.
Yeah, as well as pastoral. I'm not quite sure how that word's pronounced. Farming as well. So we've got just everything. I mean, if parts of our land are a little bit more out of the water, a little bit more dry than others, we raise a herd of cattle there and eat them instead. Mm-hmm. Eat everything.
If the water starts encroaching on the cattle territory, you'll just, turn that into some good old rice paddy fields or, start some watercress happening over there. And away you go.
Yep, exactly.
I love it. It's very adaptable. Food. Before we get into the types of food that you guys do consume, what I find interesting is that you have those ridiculously razor-sharp pointy teeth, but you don't eat any tough meat.
The sharp teeth, law-wise speaking, are due to the shells. Wait, what are they? The shells and are they mussels? Sorry, I don't eat much. I don't eat any seafood, so I actually don't know the actual names for it.
Yeah, or chewing through leather, shells, and scales. So pretty much sounds like any sort of seafood. Mm-hmm. And leather, I guess, is any of the cattle that we're raising. Really entirely sure what cattle we've got down in the wetlands.
Yeah, because under your meat
Buffalo,
in your food list under meat, it says you only eat herbivores and invertebrates. So you're not eating sort of your tougher.
We keep we keep water buffaloes. Don't we also have crocodiles? Maybe we just
Alligators. Alligators.
Oh really? It's alligators. Crocodiles are like cooler, aren't they? They're bigger.
I think they'd be.
Yeah. So despite the list, your teeth do come in handy for your food.
Well, I mean, nowadays we are very sophisticated people. This was talking about during our evolutionary process.
Right.
Nowadays, I'm sure we don't just break through. I'm not sure what the customs of eating are. Maybe it's like how we eat. I don't know. I feel like Turesk are more refined than that and wouldn't just do that.
Numbing down.
There's a hell of a lot of us. The nobles might be using their little 15 different forks for their 10 meals.
Noble. Sorry, I'm speaking as nobility. I do remember the very important rice farmers.
Yeah, so I think they might be a little bit more
rustic.
Yeah, they might need to use that a little bit more.
Gotcha. They might not be partaking of such gentle fare.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they don't have servants to chew it for them.
Ew. On that lovely note.
I do hope that that's not how the Turesk nobility eat their food.
I think we're pretty
not
confident that's not the go.
Yeah.
So speaking more specifics, we have spoken of your rice. Mm-hmm. Good old rice, but you've got your taro, roots, your macrophytes like your watercress, water spinach, water lettuce, all that stuff that's going under your water. You've got your algae and specially mentioned cranberries.
I love cranberries.
Perfect. Picked the right place then.
I have. I already knew that. This is like, especially the rice thing. It just calls to me. I don't know what it is. Don't know what it is about rice that sounds important to me. I'm not sure.
Something profound. Doubt.
Something very
yeah. I agree.
And yeah, the meats that they list on the wiki website is fish, fowl, goats, and swine. So pretty simple things to consume.
But all encompassing, like apart from bovines, which are mentioned elsewhere, they're pretty broad categories. I know with other tribes you've got specific types of beans mentioned.
Yeah, whereas yours are quite broad.
Anything with scales, feathers, you know, just there's 50,000 of us in my duchy. We'll eat whatever's going.
Yeah. Okay, so clothing. The thing I find interesting on the wiki is that it just says plants. You use plants to make your clothing. That's great. Do we know what types of plants?
Well, we do know that they do use rice for the armor.
Mm-hmm.
That's a plant.
That's a plant. Yeah, got a good point
Paper
there.
armor is a major cultural thing as well, so that's made out of plants.
Yeah.
I haven't honestly read too much into the clothing.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a
know
picture. It looks pretty neat. But you guys apparently also wear animal skins, so, you know, making use of the land.
Don't we also have more recently the tropical sedism gear?
Oh, yeah. That was more of a stylistic picture, though. More
It
so
was
than
stylistic, but that is something that we
That is something,
theoretically would
yeah.
wear in the tropics.
That's true. It's true. That was a very lovely style clothing.
What's that made out of, though?
I think it was silk, but
I'm
let me go
thinking
back
it's
to my
silk.
account too.
Yeah, which is weird, but I'm thinking
That's
silk.
weird. Weird for our biome because I can't
Yeah.
imagine. I'm assuming we would just import the silk. It's not even like would the Genoa or dress have any silk?
No, it's the Wed and the Kipik who have all the silk. Which is weird. But that's cool. But on your armor.
Anyway.
Yeah. On your armor, this is where I first started getting the inkling of a Japanese sort of Shogun era feel. Is your armor looks very Japanese.
It does. I'm
Especially the
down with
helmets.
it.
Yeah, I love it. Don't get me wrong. It's just the first time I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I can see that. And then now going back in your patient nature, I'm like, oh, I can see some parallels. So there's the Rios, there's the Tarot.
I also think that it's interesting about how they've got that, like, they've pointed out that divide between the rice farmers and the nobility and everything like that as well, which I think is, like, you can imagine that being in East Asian medieval times as well.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you can imagine that in, like, most medieval times. But rice farmers.
Very, very particular to that region.
Yeah, the other thing is about how strongly they believe in family bonds and everything like that as well.
Definitely.
That's involved in a lot of different cultures, though. So
yeah, but still.
And I'm trying to think of any other Asian things. The rice paper bowls.
Yes.
There's definitely some inspiration taken
Yeah.
from the East Asian cultures, but there's so much other stuff mixed into it as well. I don't like looking at any of the tribes as being just derivative of some real life culture.
No.
So there's
I
so
agree. I would use the word inspiration from them, but I
Yes.
also looking at the like the whole housing as well. Despite the fact they use rice paper walls, the
look
actual
very
style of
different.
the housing is definitely not
No.
Asian.
No, it's definitely unique to the Turesque.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, although that does remind me of Venice, right? Building over the water on pontoons and
Yeah, it does a little bit, but still it's a different style of architecture. But I like the way you guys have got all your decking in between all your
I love the
houses.
decking.
It's beautiful.
It is really pretty, and I would assume that the Turesque would keep that decking as clean as they can.
Well, they do
as
value
well.
cleanliness.
They
Yeah.
value cleanliness a lot, and so I would imagine that they would like be cleaning the deck as clean as well as they would clean the inside of their house because of the fact that they would want it to be clean. That's something I would want to do, at least. The front of my house to my neighbor's house. If that's not as spotless as the inside of my house, I will be OCDing.
you could almost imagine that it would be like a dishonor because there's so much emphasis put on the honor of the family unit and presenting yourself as a reputable person in the community, that maybe that would be something that would be held against people if they're a bit messy.
That's true. I mean,
their house looks a bit rubbish. They haven't mowed their yard recently,
well, yeah, because for the Tourette's, that reflects on you as a person. So what kind of leader would you be if you let your home be in that state?
Well, not even just as a leader. Like I'm thinking more on the level of just the people who live down by the docks, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've all got their little area there, and if one house is a little bit messier than the others, then that family may be shunned based on the fact that we like things so clean and shiny and
Shiny.
Because it would bring down the whole value of the neighborhood, really.
Yeah, property prices just crash. It's horrible.
The council is not cleaning up, the mowing the lawns, and they're not like cleaning the gutters.
Okay, so we've had a brief history lesson from you guys. And I think this history lesson I've got written here also does tie into the tidal marsh, though I didn't realise that at the time. It now kind of makes real sense. So let's have story time, children. Once upon a time, the land of the Turesk was very dry because they were simple agricultural farmers. However, there was a gradual rise in water levels, and so it became much more of a moist land. The good Turesk adapted, so they grew to cultivate both agriculture and their aquaculture. And this has made the Turesk who they are today. They are resolute. They stayed when their lands grew more moist, when other tribes would have just GTFO'd. And this is how we got the Turesk. Through the unpredictable nature of the wetlands, they've seen some deaths along the way, but it just brought them together as a community. And the Turesk now know how to persevere. There's no the end because we're still going. That's a history lesson.
Do we want the mythological history as well?
Perfect. That's where I wanted to go next. Go for it.
Alright, so according to the myths and religion of the Turesk, which is the Kindred, originally the lands probably would have been the grasslands then, as the queen of the Naren would have been owned that. Of that land, been in that land. There we go. And he fell in love with Midra. I think from memory, I think he was swimming or something, and he was drowning. And Midra saved him, and they fell in love. And he would come and visit her every day, and they eventually had a child together. And the child was called Toran, named after her father, which was half of her father, which is the queen of the ocean, and Naren, the queen of the grassland, the child's father. And then the father actually absolutely hated Naren and Naren's father for some reason that I can't remember.
Family ties.
Yeah. And when he found out about this relationship, he was enraged and made sure that Midra couldn't see him anymore. To help Midra and spend more time together with the Naren, he built channels of water in the lands, and that filled up with water, kind of like how we've got channels in the wetlands and the tidal marsh and everything like that, which you can travel around. And then the brother of Midra was sent as well to cause storms to prevent Midra and Naren from seeing each other as well. So that's why we have storms as well in the tidal marsh and the wetlands, because of the Kryn, the brother of Midra, is stopping Midra from seeing her husband. Yeah. I don't know where I'm going with this. It is really sad. It's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet.
I kind of see it like the Little Mermaid in a way.
Yeah.
And all you've got the spirit of the sea falling in love with the human.
Yeah, yeah.
It's forbidden. Shit goes down.
And basically, Toran was then given to Naren to look after, because she knew that if Toran stayed with her, her father would not appreciate that. Because nope. And so she gave him to Naren to look after, but then Naren saw the baby and could only think of Midra and his long lost love, So he gave Toran to the wetlanders to look after. And so the Toresk believe that they descend from Toran.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yeah, when there's floods, that's Mitra coming up trying to find Neren. And when there's storms, that's when the brother is preventing
Neren from going back to the sea.
Yeah.
Mydra.
Yeah.
It's so tragic. But this is where we get your ritual for the longest night. So every tribe has their own version of a longest night because it depends on whether they see it as a positive or a negative or, you know, a life-affirming event. You guys see it as, yes, it's more of a reaffirmation of your personalities, where you are in life, you know? And it's how you have the tragedy of Mydra. You actually plays. You perform the tragedy of Myra and Neren.
Yeah.
Right. And that's actually at the darkest point of the longest night. So of your 3 years, slap bang in the middle, that's when all your settlements, or most of your settlements, will be performing the tragedy. Are you going to be performing in it?
Yes. Of course I will be. At least I'll be definitely watching if I can't perform in it, depending on my talents and everything like that.
What about you,
Not
Cole?
sure. Busy.
Yeah, look, I mean, it is part of the Teresk law, so there will be certainly a place for it. I know that Rice is concentrating or focusing on that area a little bit more
Than you are.
than I am, certainly, but it's certainly going to take place across the wetlands, across the tidal marsh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's much better than some of the other alternatives during that time. We don't have to murder any of our people.
Yep, 6 per settlement. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and it'll attract some people and make us some money, and that's what we're all about. You know?
Yeah, and you guys don't even view any of it as a negative. It's all just good for you because you see it as a time of renewal and revitalization for your land. Because, you know, you've got a tide coming in, and that's interrupting your standard drought flood cycle. And it's, of course, it's inundating your wetlands with water, food, resources, which is great. And then just all the animals and creatures that are usually in the sea, you know, come in with the water, and that's going to add some more delicacies to your diet, which is always yay.
I think from the wiki page that just means that the harvests immediately after the longest night are some of the richest that we have. So time to make more Teresk.
That's one way of looking at it. I like it. So we have spoken on art a little bit, especially in regards to your performance and your theatre and whatnot. But I'd like to specifically say that you guys do value your performing arts more so than your crafted arts. So if there's any players looking to maybe be more of a crafter, I mean, you're more than welcome to take up a craft in Teresk locations.
If you're wanting to be in particular somebody who's like a goldsmith or a jeweler, you'll definitely find a place in Teresk lands.
Mm-hmm.
Most 100%.
Mm-hmm.
We're a farmer. We've got so many people, you know, farming of all types.
But if you're after a different kind of specialized craft, again, you're welcome to go there. You just might find more avenues for you somewhere else that will help you learn your craft, more so than the Teresk.
If you're wanting to make money, definitely come to the Teresk land.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what your craft is, you'll make money somehow.
Somehow.
If you learn from somebody.
Our traders will ship them out all over the world, and you'll get paid.
So you mentioned the goldsmithing and jewelry, but also poetry. Poetry is a very noble pursuit for the Teresk. Do you know why?
Because it's something about patience.
Yep. Patience, truthfulness,
Yep.
ceremony.
Just everything we love and adore.
Pretty much. If any of you guys are poetry lovers, like I kind of am, specifically, the poetry that the Teresk love involves clever and hidden number-based mechanics, or ones that impose some kind of external constraints, such as your iambic pentameter, your various rules, including, for example, each word being 4 letters, each line being precisely 12 syllables, or each 6th letter being the same. Those kinds of really nitty-gritty parts of poetry, Teresk.
This also feels like it's gotten some inspiration from a range of cultures. Like, I guess the sixth letter being the same is kind of more about that rhyming poetry that other cultures have. But then what's interesting is also the syllable length is quite similar to the haiku that the Japanese people have as well. So inspiration from a range, but then you can hear the East Asian
definitely coming through. Yeah, definitely coming through. So if you'd like the noble pursuit of poetry, which is very underrated in COE, come on down to the Tarrasque biomes. As for music, most of your performances will relate to religion or allegories of similar sister subjects, but you do actually use a variety of pretty cool instruments, sorry, if you are a little more wealthy.
I know nothing of this.
You know nothing about the music? Okay, cool.
Well, what's interesting about this is that other cultures are actually quite happy to have just singers without any instruments at all. But
weird, dress.
Many cultures have tribes that I've read about. But then the Tarrasque view this as lowbrow, performing by themselves, without any instruments or any backing or anything like that. So they're probably more about that whole band, orchestra, performing in a theater with grand clothing and
quality experience.
Yeah.
So if you were more wealthy, you will have large, more expensive instruments like your lyres, your lutes, your woodblocks, your xylophones. Xylophones, guys, we're getting classy here. Just because they're large and like the lumber is really hard to get down in your wetlands, the sort of lumber that you need for it. So though you have a lot of those instruments, you really have to have a little bit of money to really get them. And they're kind of inlaid with gold, you know, part of the course.
Of course they are.
Of course, yeah. But if you are going for the less expensive instruments, you do have small and transient ones such as flutes, gourds, mouth harps, it's a weird way to phrase it, singing bowls and other idiophones. So there are lower class options if you're just playing your basic pleb, which is nothing wrong with that. So economy. You have an interesting variety of occupations that you have down in the Tarrasque biomes. Do you guys have the list handy or know off the top of your head?
The main things are going to be our traders and merchants. You know, we're all about making some money, making a profit, as well as like we do have some craftspeople. We don't necessarily have the focus on some trades that other tribes have. We do have our trap makers and shipwrights. Shipwrights especially. Given our propensity for naval pursuits, for trade, and for basically anything involving the water, I guess, there's a major thing. Kind of interesting having no trees or very few trees around the place, trying to build ships.
Well, that's what your allies are for. Your allies are there for the trees.
That's what the Genoans are for, you know? They've got a whole rainforest full of trees.
And the good thing about the Genoans is that unlike the Kipik, they won't care about you cutting down their trees.
Exactly, that's exactly right.
So, yeah, we do have those few trades that are focused upon, but because we've got such a strong trade focus, I think there is going to be a market, any sort of trade, anything, any craft, any trade that you want to be involved with, there's going to be a market for it. And if there's not a market for it, our traders and merchants will sail a little bit further and find it for you.
Or they'll pass it on to the Naren, and the Naren will do all the travelling. If it's going further north.
No.
Oh, because you're doing your ship.
But Naren will get sunburned on the ships.
Oh, the poor little darling.
Hey,
the
distance between the continents is not that far.
And what if they fall in the water, you know, and or they don't have that wetland to help, you know, stay in the water for a long time? I don't know about the Naren being able to go long distances like we can. Like that.
Our Naren friends are they have their purpose. You know, we'll trade with them.
The grouse and
staying
on the grass.
I hear they might have some stone, or maybe not. That was a rumor I heard.
I think the stone's coming from a little further north. Just a little.
But no, I think that as far as trade goes, the Teresk are in it to make a profit. They're not in it to pass the profit on to someone else. We're all about that. That's our main focus, I think, is business.
And in my opinion as well, honourable and honourable business. I don't know about fair business, but they will not lie to you.
A contract is a contract. They're not going to go back on their word.
So once a deal is made, it's sacred.
Yeah.
So I guess
be careful. I would be careful though making a contract deal in case there might be a loophole there, because I'm sure the Teresk would
absolutely, and
very wise and good at writing contracts and making sure that if they are the one writing the contracts, they would know how to make it best in their favor.
Not in a sneaky way, just in a
sneaky way, just to
we're experienced in that regard. When it comes time to write a contract, we've got a team of scribes. They're not lawyers, they're scribes, and they'll write it up and make sure it's all right.
Yeah, they'll make sure those loopholes are covered.
Yeah,
for you. Yeah, so you do have a variety of things you can do there. Yeah, especially with your translators, your diplomats, and your bureaucrats. You've got a lot of scope for those positions.
And again, that comes down to diplomacy. The position we are in the world. Well, I don't know so much about the tidal marsh, but especially in the wetlands, diplomacy is going to be 100% required, because
Genoans on one side and the Weird on the other.
What's really
more so the Genoans and the Drass, Caprican, our other two tribes, they don't really like each other all that much.
The glue, in my opinion, Cove. Your Teresk are the glue that will help keep Genoa and the Drass
together. Or
sane.
Yeah. Not killing each other and all that battle.
What's also really interesting is that the Genoa, the Caprican has chosen Genoa as their kingdom seat, right? Which means that the Genoa, who typically only know one language, may struggle talking with anybody else except for the Teresk. The Drass might know the same language as the Genoan because of their shared history, but that's it. They can talk within their kingdom, but they might not be able to communicate out unless they have a translator, i.e. the Teresk, who can speak with absolutely anybody on the entire map.
It's part of the reason why, a big part of the reason why the Teresk speak Genera. And the Weird, as far as languages go, no one else in Caprican speaks any language that the Weird speak, apart from the Teresk, which is not particularly convenient since they don't like us.
They don't like many people, don't hold it to heart.
Yeah, but the position that we have between those two, the Genoans and the Drass, and to be clear, Caprican has a major focus on uniting the tribes. There's going to be just a lot of effort that goes into making sure that the Genoan and the Drass get along, integrating the Drass into this Genoan-led kingdom. And the Teresk are going to play a huge part in that, as well as having that relationship with the Weird that we'll have to put some significant work into. So I'm very glad that we've got a diplomatic bent, not a military one, because it'd be a messy little corner of the world otherwise.
It would be a bloody corner of the world.
Yeah.
Or your beautiful waterways.
We're going to make sure that doesn't happen.
Your waterways would just run red with blood otherwise.
Yeah, it would be the Bloodlands.
Yeah.
That's
cool name.
New name coming up.
But don't want to have the Bloodlands, no.
No. I would make a petition to name someone else's location the Bloodlands.
The Weird.
That's what I was thinking. The Southern Duchy hasn't been taken.
Come on, they're part of your own kingdom.
Nobody can hear me, right?
Arif's a nice guy.
Like, it's not his duchy, the Southern Duchy. Nobody's taken that one.
The Southern one, yeah.
The one which borders the Teresk lands, which, it might actually end up, hopefully won't. Hopefully you guys will be able to diplomat your way through the weird, strange relationships, but hopefully it won't turn into the Bloodlands.
No, we've got things already in place. Like, it was mentioned in the Weird video, actually, that Nightfinger, who is a Weird count in the southern Weird Duchy of LV, has a sister settlement arrangement with Bersanus, who I mentioned earlier, who's in the Genera. We've already got plans in place to make sure that this doesn't become a problem.
Yeah.
There's lots of scope to reduce the impact of this tribal
You're already
relations.
putting measures in place to prevent that, which is awesome.
Yeah, and those relations. This is the main thing that we focused on in Capricorn. Those relations are set by Soulbound. They have decided how the world has been, how the world will be at launch day. But from that day on, it's the players who will decide how those relationships progress, how everything in the world will progress. And it won't be from Capricorn's point of view. It won't be via violence and not getting along. It'll be through diplomacy and trade, and that's what the Terresk are all about.
You said that wonderfully. So we'll just go to social classes, and I think we can just do this really briefly. I don't think we need to go into a breakdown of what each class does per se, because it's pretty straightforward for the most part. So at the top of your chain of command, you have the nobility, known as the, pronunciation, Promotil?
I like it.
Are you pronouncing the L?
Promotia, I think.
We're not pronouncing the L's and the E's because it sounds very French. Promoti?
I think, yeah,
I've had the
my...
impression that it sounds French.
Industry.
Yes.
Yep, okay, I agree with that one. Okay, the LLE we're going to say is silent. So up with your nobility, it's further broken down to 3 of our actual title positions. You've got the Chancellor, who is the King. Minister is the Duke. So, Kov, you are a minister. Did you know this? Of course you did.
Yeah.
And then,
I knew that.
Rice, you are a councillor as a count or countess. So that's pretty cool.
I was wondering, is there a feminine version of a minister or a councillor?
No.
Which I'm fine with.
They're
I was
both
just
gender neutral.
Cool.
Beneath the nobility, you have the industry, which is your aristocracy. Are they broken up further? Yes. So that's where you get your mayors, otherwise known as maire, something of a sort. It's a weird spelling.
Mayor, yeah, I don't know. It's very French.
Yeah. And then your baron equivalent will be marshals, which completely makes sense for the Terresk.
I hope that L's not silent. That'd be confusing.
It would indeed. It'd be closer to your marshes, though, so, it does have something going for it.
Sure.
Beneath them, we have the mercandi, which is your gentry. And then right down at the bottom, but, it's not a bad thing, we have your commoners, who are the akradi, which are people predominantly looking at your agriculture side of things. So I think they're cool. It's way better than Naren. Naren's just basic bitch naming. That stuff's cool. Now, furthering this, you have spoken a little bit, Rice, about how important family is to the Terrestrian society, especially in regards to marrying. Do you have anything more specific? Any more reasons why you would marry?
So, marrying for the Terresk isn't just for love. The Terresk want to know basically what 2 communities, what 2 families are going to be joining. Because when they join and become one family unit, they become this strong unit together, and they actually share information between families as well. Because the Nemen want to make sure that things stay important and private and everything like that, they will keep private families secret skills and everything like that. But as soon as somebody gets married, they are part of that family, and they will share these skills and stuff with the other families that they've just married to freely, because they are now family. They also, when they do go through marriages, they tend to also give like gifts and money and stuff like that as well, to help the marriage and everything like that. Pretty sure I read that somewhere, but
It's possible.
yeah, basically.
It's possible, yes.
So basically that's what marriage is for them. It's about forming these strong relationships that people can then become a fight with each other with honor, like not fight physically, but like in society, and grow together as a big one family unit.
Okay, Rice just gave you the nice pretty version.
Okay.
The less pretty version is you're married to just use your in-laws.
Yeah.
So
basically, if you want that secret recipe of your rival for making cool rice armor, go marry him.
Marry into the family. Doesn't even have to be that person directly. Just marry into their family. Boom. Recipe's yours.
Yeah, it's the easiest way.
Absolutely. No bloodshed required.
However, be very, very careful with who you marry, because if you break that contract, if you break that marriage, you've just broken a contract, which is very bad for Turesk. So if you're marrying, you make sure you keep that contract. You just make sure you make a contract that you know you can keep, which is very
Yeah. Well, the thing also is that if you do happen to divorce from your spouse in game, you're considered untrustworthy because you didn't keep to a contract, and therefore you're considered less suitable for any future marriage contracts. So you may not be able to get those benefits in future. So yes, pick wisely.
This is why you create an alt and marry yourself.
Yes. Essentially, yes.
But if you want that secret, then marry an NPC of that family.
No, I agree with that thought process. So if you're going to be mercenary about it, at least do it right. Still talking sort of on class, your leadership structure. So if your leader dies and has no heir apparent, how do they pick the next leader?
The best reputation, because we're all about honor and society.
It's so simple.
In Turesk.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's just so straightforward. It's like, dude, best reputation, in you go. Position's yours. Now, military. There is nothing written on the wiki about this, but I know you guys...
I do know information about that one.
Fantastic, because I know you guys aren't a military, society. You always get your mercenaries from other people, but...
That's not necessarily true.
But...
We do actually have something called the Teeth of the Turesk.
It sounds so foreboding. It's great.
Yep.
Especially when you look at it.
That's also true.
you have to hear that with the picture of the teeth of the Turesk in
Visual aids necessary.
Yes. So in terms of having military, we do have our own. However, usually we do tend to hire armies, for example, Genoan mercenaries. Also, when we're trying to defend our own territory, we definitely have a very defensible area due to the pit holes, wet holes, sinkholes. And also we use traps, including poison, to dissuade invaders from reaching our homeland.
I want to know more about these Teeth of the Turesk. I hope they give us some more details on that soon, because it's such a dramatic name. And since you're not a military people, there's got to be something that makes them so special and scary.
And the fact that they're so limited in number as well. Like, even if they're the elite of the not very many, and so not very, not necessarily the best of the best soldiers on a world stage.
But for themselves.
They're the best in the biome.
The words they've used here on the official website is in addition to a select group of guards and warriors known as the Teeth of the Turesk.
So they are deliberately chosen.
It's literally just that one line. There's nothing else anywhere else.
We need more
anything I've ever
SBS.
seen.
Give us more. That's cool. Okay, so we're coming to the end here. We've mentioned briefly some of the world relations that the Turesk have with other nations, but specifically you are friendly with 2 tribes.
Friendly in quotation marks with the Genera.
100%.
So we like I mentioned earlier, the Turesk know how to keep their friends close, but their enemies even closer. So the Turesk were probably very wary of the Genoan, especially because of their very strong physicalness. So they had to be careful and keep them at a nice, good diplomatic range, which is really close, to make sure that they have a good relationship. That's how I view it.
I disagree. I mean, just reading the simple description on the wiki there, we're long-time allies, historically reliable trading partners. I think the Turesk and the Genoan are very, very fast friends. Half the reason why half the reason why I've chosen to be Turesk in the Genoan Kingdom. There's differences in some areas.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they've ever had a aggressive or negative relationship with each other. However, I would not. The Turesk in general do not trust anybody.
No.
Which is why they are friendly, but I would not say they are friends.
They're just allies.
They're allies. They're very long-time allies. They're long-time trading partners.
But I wouldn't call them friends.
They specifically taught themselves that language, believing in keeping their friends close and their enemies closer.
Mm-hmm.
So they could negotiate and interact with them on an even footing.
Well, yes. Specifically, though, if you're going to look at what assets each of you have, the Turesk provide the Genoa with grains, maize, cranberries, dyes, in exchange for their precious gold, the hardwood you need for all your decking and your building, and alchemical ingredients, and again, your mercenaries to protect you from outside forces. So it's a very mercantile.
Yeah, I mean, nothing in that description really necessarily says either way that they're really, really good friends or just close allies. But that's the flavour I've always gotten, is that they're very closely integrated. They trade and there's one sentence at the end here: the Turesk frequently employ young, unproven members of Genoan society as mercenaries or guards. You're not going to put people in those positions as a not militaristic race, a tribe. You're not going to put a bunch of people that you're not really trusting.
I mean, if the Genoans think you trust them, you would.
I think
it's about appearances at the same time. Just because you're showing to be trusting doesn't necessarily mean you are.
I think the way I see it is, if the Genoa ever get into trouble or in strife, the Turesk will probably just leave them. While, like, if somebody was actually truly allies, they would try and help them and stick up with them, and truly friends and everything like that. The Turesk, like how they did with the Dras, where they had the drought, they were like, I'm sorry guys, but we can't look after you anymore. So if the Genoa ever had in a situation similar to that as well, and basically the Turesk had to either choose between sticking with the Genoa or leaving the Genoa, they would probably choose leaving the Genoa.
I don't know. I think the fact that they're long-time allies, like, you don't become long-time allies by telling them to GTFO as soon as the water starts to get a bit, high or low or whatever the case may be.
Well, the good news is you're the one who's closest to the Genoa. Rice is an entire continent away.
Yeah.
If the Genoa come knocking on my door asking for help when I also need
You're
help,
like, go see Cobb. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Cobb is closer. Ask for him for help.
Yeah. No hard feelings, but I need to feed my people too.
I guess to add to that, I kind of don't view these world relations as having necessarily the huge impacts that other people seem to think that they will have. If my friend is playing a Genoan character and they need help, the law's not going to be any part of the decision on whether it's...
I mean, as you say, this is just what has shaped the world to today. What happens from now on is how we shape the world. So that's 100% okay, because we can start making those, alliances and those actual friendships.
Yeah, and putting the law to the side, I mean, Preacher and Scion are going to be two of the Genoan dukes. There's we're friends. It doesn't matter what the law says in any way. I mean, on the NPC side of things, maybe the characters won't get along all that well, but yeah.
I do think, to be fair, Oceanus is a special little cookie, and it's very different from the rest of the servers. I think this law will have a bigger impact on the other servers where the kingdoms and like the duchies and all of that, they aren't friends with each other the way we are necessarily, so it may have a bigger impact there.
Are you talking about in terms of the real life?
Yes.
Personal? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a more... Well, I say definitely. I don't know exactly how it is on other servers. from the outside, what everyone else sees, there's always some sort of drama going on. But the opposite is kind of true as well. On the other servers, the Genoan and the Dras don't share a kingdom.
This is also true, and yeah.
So we're not in the middle of that fight. So we've got a bit of a unique situation there. Yeah, and I guess that, again, that just sort of strengthens to me my opinion that the Teresk and the Genoan must be pretty good friends if on every other server, Kingdom, I think it's Kingdom 6, is just Genoan and Teresk. They must get along pretty well for that to have worked.
Either that or nobody else can stay in the same kingdom as the Genoa. and unless the Teresk, because the Teresk know how to like
handle them,
dance around, yeah. Because of how like military and warrior focused they are, and probably just like, we need to go on a great hunt. So then the other tribes are like, why?
Yeah.
And the Teresk are like, haha, you go into it, you'll be great.
Have fun. We'll just be back here.
Yeah, we'll just sit and watch. Awkward smile on their face.
Okay, we'll move on from that one because we could have a very long conversation about the Genoan diplomatic relationship. So you guys also have a friendly relationship with the Naren, but I mean that's pretty obvious given that they're the traders of the north, you're the traders of the south. It was a given. I'm more interested in your unfriendly relationships.
Thought you might be.
I love how amusing the fact that we have Dras as an unfriendly. However, it's like unfriendly in quotation marks as well, because we actually don't like we don't like I wouldn't say we like each other, but we don't hate each other either, because we did kick them out of our territory like years and years ago, but we still actually do trade with each other. We use each other's like waterways and swamps and everything like that, and they will use us as our ambassadors and wholesalers and everything like that. So to the rest of the world, we're pretty unfriendly, but we actually still operate on reasonably diplomatic terms, as Teresk should.
This is where I see the distance between the Teresk and the Genoa, because the reason why that's happening is because the Dras are descended from Genoa and there is hella bad feelings between them. So I feel that the Teresk are trying to feed the ego of the Genoa by going, we don't like them. They're just over there doing their thing. While privately they're like, yeah, come on, let's go trade, guys. So I think that's where you're getting your distance between the Teresk and the Genoans there. They're not being completely upfront about their relationships. We
definitely have to hold that relationship together. Especially in Capricorn, where we've got them on either side of us.
Yeah. You slap bang in the middle.
There's potential for it to be very unpleasant, but
it's the NPCs.
High risk, high reward.
NPCs, you got to watch out for them.
Sorry?
It's the NPCs you really got to watch out for.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously, now that we've seen the maps, we know that the duchies are not as homogenous as everyone might have thought they were before. There's Dras in Genoan lands, there's Genoans in Dras lands, and there's Teresk all over the place.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Dras in my duchy in general as well, so it's quite interesting. We do have quite a good, in my opinion, a good relationship with the Dras. Just the rest of the world might not see us as having a good relationship. By good on the Teresk standards.
Well, yes. Let's bring it on to your true enemies. The Word.
Personally, it kind of makes me somewhat sad as a player.
Why?
Because I do like the Word. I find them a very interesting and fascinating tribe, and if the Teresk didn't exist, I would probably be leaning towards the Word.
Which is hilarious because they're so different.
They're so different. For example, the Word are all about sharing between each other and not like trying to stand out and rise above the ranks or anything like that. They're all about keeping the balance within themselves, within their community, within everything, while the Teresk are all about trying to better themselves, trying to better their family and everything like that.
And, you know, just make money. Yay for money.
And make money, right? So they would probably view us as very unbalanced. And so, especially also with the fact that we have that big divide between our nobility and the commoners. So the red will probably not like that either. And the final reason, that'll be why they hate us a lot. But the reason why we hate them is because they used to. But we don't really hate or dislike the fact that the Dras did this as well. But we don't like the fact that they abandoned their original Queen religion.
They're deserters, in a way.
They're deserters.
I think the whole relationship is very lopsided.
Definitely.
They are quite prepared to dislike us because they view that that balance aspect as the be-all and end-all of the entire world.
Yep.
There must be balance, and that's just it. And it's a very, very straightforward way of
black and white.
But we're diplomats and traders and merchants and slightly less
balanced
prepared to just murder people because there's a bit of an eclipse going on.
Yeah.
So you know, we're going to try and make that relationship a little bit smoother, just by our very nature. You know, it's the Terresque way, and that may or may not succeed. I'm quite glad to be friends with Arif up in LV. We're playing Blood Bowl together and having a great time.
Fantastic.
I believe that will translate into the in-game relationship as well.
You'll have some political relationship there.
Yeah, and that just goes back to what I said before. Put a player behind the person, and this lore stuff may not matter as much as what people might think it would.
I mean, yes and no, because I mean, yes, you can change the lore by your character's actions, but then the NPCs do take a lot to change their ways. So I think over time, give us a few years, you could completely throw the law on its head for these tribes. I think it's something that's going to take time for the NPCs to adjust to.
This history, the law will exist in game. However, we can decide where we go from this point onwards. So you have to start the game being hated by the red and you hating the red, but you can change that, and that's the cool thing about Chronicles of Ellyria.
That's why we're all here. We want to write our stories, and our stories might not just be, and then they kept hating each other for 10 years. You know, it's not very creative.
I mean, it could be fun, but not very creative. You're very right.
Well, is it fun for the whole 10 years, though?
Yeah, no.
Eventually, it'll just be like, maybe we should chill out. Killing each other for 8.5 years, just 18 months apiece. Eh?
Yeah, love it. Okay, that is all I had on the Terresque. Do you guys have any final thoughts to add?
I would say anyone who's new to Chronicles of Ellyria and is looking at the tribes for the first time, don't be put off by that surface layer that they look a bit weird. There's so much, they're a very rich culture. There's so much more beneath that surface, that harsh looking pointy surface. Sharp, harsh, yeah, all those different things. Oh, I've experienced that myself. When I first joined Capricorn, I wanted to be Dras. That was the first tribe I ever went. I want to be. Yeah, but as soon as you look beneath the surface, and this is just me, the Terresque have so many more qualities that appeal to me as a player. There's a lot of people for whom that's true of the Dras as well, but don't stop at the external, just the visual stuff. Look deeper. So
be a little deeper than me, guys. That's my narrative. Go a little deeper than skin. So there you have it, guys. That is our lovely discussion on the Terresque. So thank you to Duke Kov and Countess Rice for their input here. It's been a great chat, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mishka.
No
for having
worries.
us.
Yeah, welcome. I'm glad to have had you here. So if you guys want to play Terresque, you can head down to either of their duchies, counties, or settlements, or one of the ones in the area, and see how the game plays down in the lower continents.